Yeah. So HEX, let's switch back to that real quick. Is it dying? Is it a great time to buy or a terrible time to buy? Where's the bottom? What do you think? I mean, you said the next 1 to 3 months, you're not sure much is going to change at the macro level, I guess. But what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, where it's at now, like it's absolutely like in the buy zone. So like I have on one of my websites, dipcatcher.com, I have these email alerts that
Everyone's heart stopped when you said that, by the way, and now they're very happy.
oh. No, so here I'm just gonna pull up the chart. Let's
Because a lot of people, they're saying, 3, 4 cents. I've heard 5 cents, 6, 7 cents, and I'm like, I didn't think I'd see it below 10 cents, and now we're at 8.5 or so, maybe 9.
Yeah, well, it's at 8.2 cents right now, and so kind of where, at least on the chart, the price is about to hit a level. So I have this algorithm called DipCatcher. It powers these email alerts that probably are turned off because they hit the limit every month, and I have to like reset it, and I just don't because I don't really care that much.
Doing like AWS free tier?
Yeah, it's like, well, this is a trading view free tier.
Okay.
So on the weekly chart on this, like it's like a modified Bollinger Band. The price is almost at the bottom bands, which on the weekly chart, which it has never gotten anywhere near in history. So partially it's because in the early days, there was just so much volatility that those bands are so big, but it is, this is the closest it's ever been. And it may, it's, so right now this like lower Bollinger Band is at 6.7 cents, and the current price is 8 cents. So it is way below all long time frame moving averages, and it's approaching these like lower Bollinger Bands that like price should only be there in less than two out of every 100 weeks. The odds of it ever being there is like 1.7% ever. So 1.7 out of 100 weeks would you expect price to be this low. So from that perspective, it's definitely like a buy at any price range. But also when you just look at the levels, like price virtually went so straight up all of 2021 that it didn't have time to kind of build any market structure. Like it didn't spend any time ranging. And so like the market has very little memory of price at these levels. And so it can always just yoink down because like there's not like a trading history of price at pretty much down until like under 2 cents. And so like, that's like the further risk, but there's also the risk that never comes down. And so I always think that it's much better to just like buy into a dip kind of at any, like, don't try to snipe the bottom. Just make sure you're buying a good dip. It's got to be like, you don't want to be pump chasing. Like sometimes it is advantageous to pump chase, but like you want to be buying painful bear markets. And so like, it's not about like timing it, and you can DCA if you want, or you can just buy and just get it over with. And like, that's your average. It's just like, you could have, like, I think that just taking action when you feel compelled, like when you feel pain, like, when you look at that price chart, like kind of at whatever price, like, you can just enter and not think about it. And, just check to see kind of where it's on. It's like, you want things that are in long-term uptrends, but in serious bear markets. And like, that's like exactly what we have right now in the HEX chart. Like we look at the all-time one, it's like this downturn. It's kind of similar to the bear market that HEX experienced from May of 2020 through like November of 2020. It was pretty much a bear market. And so it's kind of similar time scale there. So like, around this is the time to buy, but you no matter when you're buying ever, you should always assume that it can go down another 99%. Like absolutely, and anything can. Like if big sellers are activated, if just everyone's selling and isn't new buyers, like price can always go lower. But you just got to be, you want to be right where like at any time that you bought in the 3 months prior, 3 months after, like, you want to just kind of be in a nice spot there. You don't need to like snipe the bottom.
Well, so how much do you think the fundamentals of PulseChain potentially launching in the next few weeks, maybe not, but how much do you think that fundamentals plays into HEX, going higher, going lower? And if a fork date is announced or V3 is announced or whatever, we get some good news from PulseChain, how does that affect HEX?
So I actually think everything related to PulseChain was priced in starting a year ago. Like as soon as like PulseChain kind of launched, like actually
the very typical analysis view, gotcha,
kind of has like already happened. So like I think like the current sell pressure, it's probably only like a small fraction actually related to the PulseChain. It's like other than that, like there's still massive early buyers that just have big profits to take. Maybe they have big living expenses right now, and they got indicate. I think the impact of PulseChain is that like people that would have otherwise held their HEX, but because they aren't expecting the PulseChain to be liquid immediately, and they have big life expenses, big new life expenses in the last year, and prices of everything else are going up. I think that, still it's just big sellers that take profit, and it doesn't really matter why they sold. It's like it was their coins, so they can choose to sell at whatever time they want. And so I think that overall has a much bigger impact on the like bear market we've been in. Like it's mainly driven by big early buyers. And then the PulseChain stuff that maybe like amplifies it in both directions, and it impacts how those people are thinking, because it's likely that if you're a big early HEX buyer, you're probably also interested in PulseChain. And so, but and then maybe like, I don't necessarily expect like if like a clear launch date happens, I don't expect much to happen, because it's like by then it's like everyone who has HEX ready to go in is probably already have it, and even if, the people that are rebuying in to get it, it's like, okay, they're being met by those big sellers who now have to, like, rather than selling just their principal, rather than selling just their stake earnings on their big short-term stakes, now they're having to sell some of the principal because the prices are lower. So like, I think those things are really driving price, and the PulseChain stuff is probably already priced in.
So you think that there will be people who will be buying, once they know a date for Pulse launch, they'll be buying HEX to get PHEX, but they'll be buying into sell pressure from some of the whales.
Yeah, just like existing like baseline sell pressure. Those people who are rebuying back in, and then also because there's going to be sell pressure after the fork, because like even though everyone's getting the copy of the HEX, because it's being given to everybody equally, it's as if nobody's getting it, because it's like everyone's balance appreciated by the same amount. And so like you didn't gain relative to other HEX people. And so
do you think the ratio trading is going to leave anyone with PHEX anymore? You think they're all going to trade it for Pulse or PulseX?
Wait, what do you mean?
Oh, on the pre-bridge. So for example, if we get a pre-bridge and everything has no value and you're able to trade things based on ratio, do you think a lot of that PHEX is going to go into Pulse, go into PulseX, and like really drive down PX price?
Yeah, so it definitely could, because that at least seems like people's number one way, if they missed out on the PulseChain sacrifice or the PulseX sacrifice, is to get HEX, because they expect it to be a very liquid market right away. So yeah, that's downwards pressure on the Pulse, or on the HEX Pulse pair, but that only translates to downward price on the USD pair if the people that are selling their PulseChain for that HEX, if those people are turning around and then selling that HEX and cashing out. So like people swapping their PHEX for Pulse, that alone doesn't move the HEX USD price. It's only like what happened with that HEX next. And so that's that could, if people, maybe these people that are strapped for cash that are currently selling their HEX, maybe they are going to be quick to be selling their Pulse on any pump, and then they're and cashing out. So if that's the case, that could cause downwards pressure on Pulse and on HEX. And yeah. And I think these are like, that's like what you want as like, because I don't think anyone I know I mean, I don't actually, I take that back. A lot of people way over sacrifice. At least the people that I talk, like the you know, my crowd, they're kind of more on like they look at all things in perspective, and they have good sense for not like putting themselves at risk for big loss they can't recover from, even if the worst thing happens. You know, and the whole premise of dip catcher, like the whole premise is like what to do when price is going down. Like it's all about handling, because that's when the opportunity is, when the prices are low. And so like these, you want these big dip opportunities, and just the dynamics of how they work, and just like, everyone's living expenses are going up because of inflation. Yeah. Also, people amplified that by, gaining new quality of life. And then maybe their assumptions were that HEX was going to stay at this other level. And so it, like, all those things that factor into like dips, that can cascade into, Pulse, HEX. And so, you want to be ready for those. And hopefully, you weren't, or anybody listening wasn't, overexposed in that, because there certainly is going to be buying opportunities. You never know what price, but like there are always going to be good relative buying opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, even now, like if you're buying at 8 or 9 cents, like what are you thinking in even next year? Like how long do you think it's going to last, the bear market in general? Like, you have any idea? Like, let's say, the war in Ukraine gets resolved in some way, that the markets go back to normal a little bit, and recession doesn't quite happen. It was just like some pain for a few months, and then I guess I'm painting like one of the best case scenarios for like 2023. But how does HEX, is it decorrelated? Does PulseChain help that? Is it still kind of the status quo? What do you see changing in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the size of the new people getting onboarded, and how they compare to the large players who have big expenses and big HEX bags. And so like, and so, and
more new whales.
Absolutely. And because those are the people that really drive the price. Like the retail adoption is important for kind of like the big, like mass imprint, but the people really driving the price are the people that are, in like the 8 to 10 figure range. And, because it takes how many individuals does it take to add up to like a 10 figure, or, that's even absurd, like even like a 7-figure purchaser. Like, that could be thousands of people.
Is that a metric we should be looking at? Like how many, like does the number of whales go up in HEX? Is that a metric that would tell us the story?
Yeah. Because like, it's like there's like the current whales, and then as they sell over time, they get recirculated into new people, and then new people can accumulate. And so, yeah, I mean, that's like a big, big metric.